For the first time since the Dallas County Grand Jury indicted John McKee 2 months ago on embezzlement and swindling charges, the former Crime Commission president came out in public. So in another 2.5 months, Dallas's former Crime Commission president goes on trial. To say how long that trial will last would be purely speculation at this point. But one thing is sure, the majority of people in Dallas will be very interested in the fate of John McKee. Martha McIntire, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Dallas County Courthouse.
You have to be careful with it because some people could misuse it. I think it could be misused. It's just like putting a gun in some people's hand who can't operate one. They'll shoot the heck out of you if you're not careful. But we are careful because, particularly when you're going after these large corporations and you expose them in the news, you cost them $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in business. And you've got to be darn careful when you do this. And I think this is something that we have to be careful on.
How serious do you think the consumer fraud problem is?
Oh, there's not a man in this room that won't be a victim of consumer fraud within the next 3 or 4 or 5 months, either he or his wife or somebody in his family. It doesn't have to necessarily be a whole lot of money. It can be when you go in and pay your check and somebody puts down 15% on your bill already and you leave another 15% and the guy never tells you. He knows what he's doing, and this is a fraud.
There are at least 250 county employees over the age of 60 who will be affected by a mandatory retirement age if it's included in a Civil Service Act. And their fears will be answered within 2 short weeks when the Civil Service Act is completed. A 3-man commission, chairman by Joe Bruce Cunningham, was appointed to write the Civil Service Act. Cunningham today would not discuss exact clauses in the act, but he did say that there has been discussion about a retirement age without mentioning any exact age. However, the majority of civil service acts across the country do include a retirement age of 65. One man who opposes the mandatory retirement is Commissioner Dick Lewis.
When we adopted this civil service plan, or we voted to put civil service in for Tarrant County, it says, I'll read what it says here to you in the House Bill number 213, Section 10. It says a person who is an employee of a county covered by this act on the effective date of this act shall not be required to take any competitive examinations or perform any other act to maintain his present employment. Now, I interpret it that comes under the grandfather clause that was in the Civil Service Act passed by the Senate Bill number 213. And I maintain that that's what I voted on, and I think that they are covered by the grandfather clause.
The grandfather clause, allowing the current employees of the county to be exempt from mandatory retirement, has been discussed by the Civil Service Commission, but no decision has been reached as yet. Another area receiving consideration under the Civil Service Act is the political activities of county employees while they're on the job. Exactly how strong the language of that part of the act will be concerning political campaigning is anyone's guess at this time. I have not been able to find anyone during this political season who wants to talk about it. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
Memphis is in a plight now that I'm not running away from the situation. It's just the fact that if I could say it and say it publicly, I've always had a desire to come to Dallas. This is not just happened so with me. For 3 springs now, I've had a great desire to look into this program. I thought that Dallas made probably the most progress of any club in the league through the course of the season. I would think that there are a couple of weak spots that we might be able to shore up. But basically, I think the backcourt is the finest in the ABA. Donnie Freeman, in my opinion, is the top guard in the ABA. Steve Jones, the finest attitude player that I've ever been associated with, and coupled with little Joe Hamilton's speed and quickness and experience, I think the backcourt is in great shape, and there's some good talent on the front line.
Do you have more authority with the Shaps than you had with Memphis?
Well, let's put it this way. I've had all the authority that I ever wanted. I most of the time in New Orleans had it to myself, but oddly enough, and not pointing the finger at any one particular individual, there were a series of mistakes made with our franchise in Memphis that I had no control over, and when it gets to the point that the coach himself does not have a say in the player personnel, it's a bad situation, and this happened in Memphis.
Right, Jerry. Both teams, the game was full of mistakes, and that's what wins or loses hockey games, and it's quite evident that we made one more mistake than the other team.
You're not a believer in ifs and buts, though, are you?
No, I'm not. I thought we should have won the game on our play and our chances, and we didn't have lady luck really on our side. As you know, in the course of a game, I counted that we hit 8 goalposts, which certainly could have changed the complexion of the game various times. But it's all tied up. We still have the advantage by playing the 2 games in our building here, and we just have to go out and play the hockey that we played in the first 3 games. And I have no doubt in my mind that our fellows are down and out right now, but we're going to have a little workout now, Jerry, and we're going to bounce back, and we're going to look after that one tomorrow night. That's first and foremost, and then we'll have to go back to Tulsa naturally on Saturday, and we'll have to look after that after Friday night's game here.
If there's any one thing that was missing in last night's game that was there in the 2 victories, what would it be?
No, I think that Kenny Brown didn't have a good night. He's played exceptionally well for us in the series and in the Oklahoma series, but he had definitely a bad night, and our defense went along with a bad night for him. So that contributes to the other team's success, and that was our downfall. I think we scored enough goals. As you know, we scored 5 goals in the other team's building. Should have won 2 games for us in the type of series that it's been. They scored 6, so as I said, they made 1 fewer mistakes than we did.
JP, what's your analysis of last night's game?
Well, after we took a 3-1 lead, we kind of let off for about 10 minutes in the second period, and they scored 2 goals, and then they came back strong in the third period and scored 2 more goals, and they took the lead 5-3, and then they let down for a while. We came back, we tied it up at 5-5, and then I made a bad mistake in the 6th goal, and that's which cost us the game late in the third period.
You had to be satisfied with your game offensive, though, wise, would you not be?
Oh, yeah. I was pretty satisfied with that, but I wasn't very satisfied about my defense because we didn't get too many goals scored against us, me and JP and Pitt, all year long, and we had to take a game like that, you know, to get those 3 goals scored against us, and especially the last one that really hurt us.
You think there might have been a little letdown last night?
Oh, yeah, definitely. After we took a 3-1 lead, we really let down for 10 minutes, and that cost us the game.
What kind of a game do you think it'll be tomorrow night?
I think it's going to be a close checking game again tomorrow night, and I think we should come out on top again.
The Dallas hearing is one of a series scheduled in 3 separate cities as federal officials collect information on the pros and cons of leaded gasoline. In the Dallas hearing, industry representatives generally have favored less stringent government controls, pointing out that leaded gas is necessary for a smoother performing engine. Environmentalists, on the other hand, have testified for strict control of lead content on the grounds that lead is responsible for much of the pollutants in automobile exhaust. But a possible solution was suggested by Warren Amster of Phoenix, Arizona. He said his firm has developed a new gasoline additive called Star Gas, which reduces pollution without affecting engine performance.
The Scott Laboratory tests, which we submitted to EPA as part of our prepared submittal, showed that oxides of nitrogen in the exhaust were reduced by 53% just by burning Star Gas with no modification to the automobile whatsoever. Unburned hydrocarbons were reduced 36%, and carbon monoxide was reduced 6%. So that by burning Star Gas in any car, regardless of the year, we feel that you can probably reduce the smog-forming exhaust emissions roughly in half.
The report on this new additive has been one of the most newsworthy statements from today's hearing. But according to an EPA spokesman, the government's position is that more evaluation will be necessary before Star Gas could be approved for the motoring public. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News and The Move.
It was just 15 months ago that I reported from Ulm, West Germany, that the United States appeared destined to experiment with a new tax form which was being used back then, even here in Europe. Mehrwertsteuer, they call it in West Germany. When it comes up in the United States, and it almost certainly will, probably in November, about 2 years after my first report, it will be known as the value-added tax. It's easy enough to understand. Each company pays on the value it adds to its product, all the way from raw material to the finished product. Economic conservatives in the United States are quick to point out, and accurately so, that each company involved in product development is allowed to deduct the taxes it pays along the way. So, a 30-cent loaf of bread under a 10% Mehrwertsteuer added value tax plan would cost 33 cents, a 3-cent tax paid by you, the consumer. It amounts then to what they call a form of a national sales tax. Few will argue that more and more tax money will be demanded in the future. There are, however, those who take issue with a tax which hits the poor man just as hard as the rich. Whatever your economic philosophy, you may want to contemplate the VAT. You will almost certainly hear of it again, perhaps come November. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News on the Move in Switzerland.
McKee was ordered to appear in Judge John Mead's Criminal District Court today for a preliminary hearing. His attorneys, Bill Alexander and Monte Irion, refused comment to reporters, and McKee said nothing. The 64-year-old McKee is charged with embezzling more than $6,700 from Texas Scottish Rite head Lee Lockwood, and swindling almost $45,000 from Scottish Rite funds when he served as Lockwood's Dallas representative. For a hearing. Contrary to rumors of mental and physical breakdown, McKee looked calm and well, not outwardly showing any toll on his health. He talked quietly with his attorneys and seemed totally oblivious to the lights and cameras. Everyone involved in the McKee trial is under orders from Judge Mead to maintain complete silence about the case.
Okay, see you in July.
He would not attempt to influence legislation. He would attempt to help us in interpreting what legislation is there in terms of grant programs that are available to cities throughout the country, and specifically Fort Worth.
How much do you foresee the city gaining in having this knowledge?
Well, I would hate to try to estimate or try to put a dollar and cent value as to how much additional federal aid we might obtain. I feel certain that through these services we will much more than offset the additional cost to the city.
How much will the cost be?
All right, the base cost will be $12,000 a year for 1/4 of this individual's time.
Well, I think we could make a lot more progress if women weren't their own worst enemies. They've been told that before, and I try to point out to them what they should be doing. For instance, women do not stick together as women. They must stick together as women, because united you can do many things, and divided you end up doing everything badly or a lot more slowly. It comes about in 3 ways. The woman who is not in the workforce, either she doesn't have to work or she's not career trained and doesn't care to work, usually will not pull hard for those who do have to work or those who do want to work. Then there's also the woman on top of the heap who's already made it, and more often than not she won't go out of her way to open doors for other women trying to climb that ladder. But she has this queen bee complex, and she likes it in that lonely atmosphere of mostly all men. We have to overcome both of these problems.